Hello guys, Charles here and welcome back to my channel. So today I want to talk about what an enharmonic equivalent is and how it relates to superimpositions. Now both of these concepts are things which often students who come to me who have been playing for a while, they get a huge amount of value out of just diving into this a bit more because it essentially takes something that you already know and shows you how to apply it in lots of different contexts. So whereas you might feel like you only have a few ways of tackling certain situations, you realise that those same situations can be used in other situations, and all of a sudden it kind of is a great way to start to tie our playing together. So we're going to talk quickly about what an enharmonic equivalent is, how it relates to our chord playing on the instrument, and then we're also going to talk briefly about superimpositions. I'll give you a couple of examples of those, and that's certainly something we'll dive into in more detail in the future. So let's get into it. So simply put, an enharmonic equivalent is the fact that you can give the same thing lots of different names. You can call me Charles, you can call me Charlie, you can call me Chuck or Chad or whatever you want. It doesn't change me. I'm always the same. We're just giving me a different name. And the same is true for notes on the instrument. So for example, we could take the note 6th fret of the E string. Now, some of us might immediately think of that as B flat. And you'd be correct. Some of us might think of that as A sharp, and you would be correct. Some of us might think of it as C flat flat, C double flat, and you'd be correct. So that one note has several different names, and that's all an enharmonic equivalent is. So the advantage of understanding your enharmonic equivalents is that we can take the same thing, give it a different name, and it can kind of inform a different context. So let's look at this with some chords. So a really important enharmonic equivalent you need to be aware of is the major 6 chord. So here's a C major 6. And the notes there are C, G, A, E. C, G, A, E. So I can play that nicely in a C major context. Now all of that was C6. However, the notes C, G, A and E are also A minor 7, C, G, A and E, which is A, C, E and G if you think about it, if you reframe it as A minor 7. So I'm going to add a low A between each of these chords now to slightly change the context. So before we heard this as C major 6. And now if I go... You've possibly reframed the way you're hearing that into a minor sound world. So that's a really important one, understanding that your major 6 can be used as a minor 7. Barry Harris talks about that one a lot. Another one that Barry Harris talks about is the minor 6 chord. So if we now take a C minor 6, C, G, A, E flat, I can move that around and we can hear it as C minor 6. Very nice too. And again, if I add an A at the bottom of it, we can hear it as a different chord, which is an A minor 7 flat 5. A, C, E flat and G. Same notes as C minor 6, but we're using it in a different context. Exactly the same ingredients, different context. So those are two really powerful enharmonic equivalents which can take you from 2 chords to 4 chords. Let's move on to the idea of a superimposition. Whereas an enharmonic equivalent has exactly the same notes as its enharmonic equivalent, C6, C, G, A, E, A minor 7, still C, G, A, E. A superimposition can be thought of as sharing a majority of notes with whatever you are trying to imply. Now we can superimpose chords, which would be like playing a C major chord and an E flat major chord at the same time. Those are superimposed chords. Or the way we're going to talk about it today is that you can superimpose a chord over different bass notes. When I started encountering this, it was with Tim Miller's GMC approach. This really opened my ears up to new sounds. So a couple of ways we can do that. If we take our minor 7 or major 6 shape here. Let's do it on E minor 7 this time. So I'm up here, E minor 7. Now I can take that E minor 7 and I can refinger it so I've got a C in the bass. And I've now got a lovely C major 9 sound. Now another way I could think about that is rather than thinking of it as a minor 7 on the 3rd, superimposed over a bass note, I could think of it as the major 6, its enharmonic equivalent, on the 5th, which is G. It's hard to play in this position, but the effect would be this. Now that leads me on to one of the other important things which I got from the GMC approach, which is that you don't actually have to play that bass note. In that instance, that was quite difficult for me to play a G6 chord and a C at the same time. I had to use right-hand tapping. It wasn't practical. However, you've got to remember that the bass player is going to be playing a C. You don't need to be responsible for every single note. And once you start thinking about it that way and freeing yourself up, you are superimposing structures on what other people are playing. So you don't need to be responsible for playing every single note, and that's really, really freeing. So I would suggest you experiment with using the chords you already know and try them over different bass notes. There's only 12 notes, so it doesn't take you long to experiment with these. But I think when you discover these for yourself, they're a lot more applicable. You remember them better when you discover something for yourself rather than just looking at a whole chart of play this chord over this bass note and you create this or whatever it is. Discover these for yourself. So my favourite use of superimpositions probably is over dominant chords because we can create some really nice alterations, and we're all in jazz for the sick alterations, man. So here's what we're going to play. I'm going to play this upper structure of a C7 chord here, B flat, E, G and C. And I can play different bass notes here to give myself different altered chords. So if I add an A, slightly piano voicing here, so I'm playing an A on the 12th fret of the A string, but keeping that upper structure, I get this sound, which is a gorgeous sound. So that's giving me A, the root, B flat, flat 9, E, the 5th, G, the 7th, and C, which is really, in this instance, we'd call it B sharp, an enharmonic equivalent of C, because it's really the sharp 9. And that's a lovely chord. Similarly, I can go around my family of 4. I could use an F sharp in the bass, so I'm just playing an F sharp here on the 9th fret of the A string. And that same upper structure, I've got to refinger it. So there I've got F sharp, the root, A sharp or B flat, the 3rd, E, the 7th, G, the flat 9, and C, the flat 5. Yeah, juicy. Next up I could do E flat. That's a mysterious sounding one there. E flat, the root, B flat, the 5th, E natural or F flat is another name for it, and harmonic equivalent is the flat 9, G is the 3rd, and C is the 13, so this one's like a 13 flat 9. Not a very common chord. Lovely. And then we're back to C again. Now that's not to say it only works on those bass notes, it also sounds pretty cool on D. I love that. But you want to experiment with these yourself. Like I say, there's only 12 options, so pick the ones that you like and discard the ones that you don't. So I hope I've inspired you to go away and experiment with these yourself. It really is so much more effective when you discover the sounds that you like and begin to implement them into your playing as soon as possible. I used to look up all these different charts online and say, like, this chord used that and this chord used that, but I would just never remember it. So actually discovering one or two this week, for example, and start using them, I think is the way to go. That's the way that works for me anyway. The real power of enharmonic equivalents and superimpositions is that you can take things that you can already play. You're just using material shapes you already know. And you can apply this to scales as well, which we'll probably talk about in more detail in the future. So it's an immediate way to tie all these loose ends in your playing together and I suppose become a more rounded player and feel a bit more confident when you're playing over changes, that you do have the tools required to to tackle them. Let me know down below in the comments some of your favourite superimpositions. That might be a useful thing for other people to go down and check in the comments. Tell us which chord you use over which bass note or which two chords you like to stack, all that stuff. I'd love to check those out. If you found this video useful, please do give it a like, subscribe, ding that notification bell and share with any of your friends who might also benefit from this content. And as always, I hope you're all doing very well, getting plenty of practice in, and I very much look forward to seeing you in the next one. Cheers.
Roll up, let me embed a story you'll never forget. A drip, drip, you're drowning in debt now. You can't buy your way out, and I heard you find it difficult to